When we picture the 19th century American pioneer, the image is almost always the same: families scraping together dirt to build a sod house. The logic seems obvious. The Great Plains offered punishing winters. Survival meant living inside the earth. Federal policies like the Homestead Act promised free land, pulling millions of settlers out into this harsh expanse to break the soil and build these identical, desperate shelters. But mapping the actual settlement data in North Dakota reveals a glitch in this historical narrative. The idea that the environment forced everyone to build the exact same way completely breaks down. Instead of a uniform sea of sod, researchers found a chaotic, localized mosaic. They found log cabins, imported timber frames, and complex mud structures were sitting right next to each other on the exact same terrain. The climate wasn't calling the shots. Even in this punishing environment, settlers made specific housing choices based on their cultural and ethnic identities. A patch on the western edge perfectly illustrates this. It's an area scraping right up against the Badlands, steep, rocky, and intensely difficult to farm. In the late 1890s, Ukrainian immigrants from the province of Galicia began pouring into this specific pocket. They were fleeing severe overpopulation, religious persecution, and extreme poverty in Eastern Europe. They arrived with almost zero capital, stepping off the trains into a brutal, freezing landscape with nothing to their names. Yet, rather than throwing together whatever would keep the wind out, they immediately started planning how to replicate the traditional homes of their home villages. For these new arrivals, the house functioned as a psychological anchor, a piece of the world they left behind, planted into alien soil. To get through their first few winters, these immigrants did construct temporary sod houses or dugouts cut straight into the hillsides, known locally as burdets. But this was strictly viewed as a bachelor phase. The moment a settler prepared for marriage, cultural expectations kicked in. A proper union required a proper, permanent home. Their goal was to build what locals called a gumbo house, a meticulously engineered post and earth structure. They sank cedar posts, nailing horizontal willow laths across them to create a skeletal frame. Adapting to local materials, they mixed a slurry of clay, straw, and horse dung, the gumbo, ramming it tightly between the laths for insulation. To finish the exterior, they smoothed over the filler with fine mud plaster and painted the house with a bright white lime wash. This process was a highly intentional adaptation of the wattle and daub technique they had used in Galicia, re-engineered for the materials they could scrape together in the Dakotas. The commitment to old world standards didn't stop at the exterior walls. The interior space was dictated by a rigid, imported layout. Homes followed a strict two-room floor plan, entered through the central kuchnia, or kitchen. Despite being tiny, these spaces efficiently housed large families, overlapping cooking, living, and sleeping. They maintained rigid cultural rules, like placing religious icons exclusively on the eastern wall. They made one major concession to the prairie. To block sub-zero winter winds, most two-room homes were intentionally built without front entryways. By organizing their space this way, the settlers built a psychological fortress. They imposed the strict, familiar order of Eastern Europe onto the chaotic edge of the frontier. This commitment to tradition carried serious social weight outside the walls of the home. The Ukrainian immigrants faced extreme prejudice from the established Anglo-American ranchers, who viewed their new neighbors as foreign threats, often harassing them and even shooting at their homes in the night. In that hostile environment, building a glowing, whitewashed post and earth home was a loud, unapologetic declaration of their difference. This visibility extended to the center of their communities. They pooled their meager resources to build distinct Byzantine Rite churches crowned with Eastern European onion domes. They even claimed the surrounding landscape itself, marking the dusty intersections and their own front yards with handcrafted iron crosses and cement shrines. Today, the harsh winters and rural depopulation have reduced many of these structures to decaying wooden skeletons on the prairie. The American frontier is defined by these acts of architectural will, by immigrants who forced the dirt of a new world to carry the undeniable shape of their own identity.